Hi people, and hello my Chilli Con Carnage crew. It is Chilli here, and we are here for a special episode in regards to Santana. We're continuing on with part 2 of Santana's rankings of the albums. And of course, I am joined here by Waz.
Hi, how are you?
Good as new.
Yep.
So we are, of course, delving into the second part of the series of 3. There is, the first series, of course, will be up in this little section over here. If you haven't watched it, check it out. And of course, we have ranked all the stuff from his latest career, basically 2000s and stuff like that onwards. So if you haven't checked that out already, make sure to give it a look out and view that to see how we ranked those albums. And that was a tough list, I guess. There was a few in there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but this is part of Santana's career that's a bit sorted, I suppose. An interesting part, that's for sure. Before we start,
mid-career.
Yeah, the mid-career lull, if you will. So before we start this episode, I just wanted to go over a few things. Basically, the 90s and 80s was regarded as a low point for Carlos Santana, and he would also be without a record deal for the 90s. I'll delve into that one in the next album that's coming up, but he struggled a lot through the 80s and 90s, basically like a lot of 70s and 60s musicians did, really. Trying to find their
relevance.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably the best word for it. The 80s definitely was a change in music scenes, and the 70s musicians weren't really keeping up for obvious reasons. But that being said, there were a lot of ex-Santana members also releasing solo albums or albums mixed with ex-Santana members around this time as well. We're not going to rank them, but I just thought I would give a special shout-out to a few of them here. There was Abraxas Pool, which was featuring all the ex-Santana members, with guitarist Neil Schon, drummer Mike Shreve, keyboardist Greg Rowley, percussionist Joe Arias and Mike Carabello, and bassist Alfonso Johnson. So, interesting little one there. I listened to a bit of it. It's kind of a Santana knockoff, yep. I think they even covered like Oike or Black Magic Woman or one of those other songs. Yeah. So, yeah, kind of the ex-Santana members cashing in a bit there, but I guess that's worth a listen if you really love your Santana. During post-1992, I should say, for Santana, he got together and did Santana Brothers. And, well, I mean, that was Carlos Santana, along with his brother George, who passed away a couple of years ago recently. And also, I think his nephew?
Son or his nephew?
I think it's his nephew.
Okay.
Here it is, right here. Nephew Carlos Hernandez, which was interesting because, he'd been around for about 20-odd years by then, and this is the first album they put together. And I think he went on to do one live record with them, or performed on one of the tracks anyway for a live record. Yeah. So that's an interesting one. It's really, again, up to you if you want to listen to it. I listened to bits of it. But I do have to give a shout out here to Neil Schon's solo album Beyond the Thunder, which also features another few ex-Santana members. And Beyond the Thunder, one
of my favourite. Yeah, I bought that when it came out on CD, and as it did come out on CD, not record. And it was a high playing, high rotation, I think they call it, don't they? I played it, at least once a week for a long time, and several times.
Yep.
And I can still go back and listen to it now. It's a brilliant album. It's instrumental. And there's some really fabulous tracks on it. It just blends together. It's just beautiful guitar work and tracks, and even with the final track where he uses the guitar to emulate a wolf.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah. I do have to say, I was actually playing that record probably about last week when I was editing some of the other videos. It's weird. It's like it is a background kind of music, but at the same time, it's not forgettable background music. No. It's actually very nice. Neil Schon, if you haven't checked it out. Different
to some of his other stuff. I mean, it was different to Journey, and he's had another solo. He's had a few solo albums out, but his most recent solo album, which I forget the title of, is not too different to that Beyond the Thunder.
Yeah. So, look, I wanted to give a shout out. If you're going to hit up a few of the solo albums, I would probably recommend this one above all others. So, Neil Schon, Beyond the Thunder, definitely worth a check. Now, before we get on with the episode, there's two other things I just wanted to quickly discuss. A quick shout out to Jim McCarthy. Thank you very much for your comments in regards to the last episode. We appreciate you for watching this. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know you were eagerly anticipating it, so here we go. Now, just before we do jump into the first album, have you heard all these albums before we started this?
Yes. Oh, before we
started this.
Not every one of them. Some of them was my first listen to as I went through, and I'll explain that as we go along. I suppose, like a lot of people, found that Santana during the 80s and 90s was a bit formulaic on some of the albums.
Yep.
And there's a few albums, and I'd listened to most. I probably listened to 2/3, 3/4 of them.
Yeah.
But there were one or two that I listened to for the first time, including some of his solo material. In fact, I found his solo material to be quite good. I mean, a lot
Quite
better
enjoyable.
than... Yeah.
I'd say 2/3 of this stuff I haven't listened to before I put myself into the deep end, which is kind of disappointing because I know I know that Spotify last year said I was in the top 1% of Santana listeners, and I'm like, no, I don't deserve this. So, retribution, here I come. So I'm going to go first into MILARGO, the 1992 release. There's a quick silver lining I probably want to point out here, that this is an album that I guess many saw as a very low point in his career, and would also be a silver lining, I guess, of sorts, because this didn't sell well. It was one of his albums that failed to sell, did not, no one really appreciated, and because of that, he lost his record at the time.
Lost his contract.
He's lost his contract, sorry. And also, it did touch upon a few other subjects, but I'll go into those later. But yeah, he lost his contract because this album failed to do anything, really. And many regard the 80s as like his hardest times. I'd say this era up until 1998 was his hardest time, because he was without a record label, but because of this, we would get the future album, of course, Supernatural. So, Phoenix coming out of the ashes type of scenario, I guess, here. But I gotta say, this album is actually really good. It's dedicated to two friends that he lost just the years prior, which was, of course, Miles Davis and Bill Graham, that's right. So, yeah, it starts off, of course, with the introduction song with Bill Graham on the vocal part in the intro, introducing the band at a live section before, of course, going into the album.
Yeah, you look... Bill Graham died the year before in a helicopter crash. His helicopter crashed into a high voltage pole, high voltage stanchion, when they were coming back from a concert, which is very sad. I mean, Bill Graham, Bill Graham's Fillmore in San Francisco and then in New York were great places, and Bill Graham was, I think he was a large player in that San Francisco scene and New York scene and the blues and music, generally. He encouraged people like Carlos Santana. He managed Carlos Santana for
he
time.
Pretty much discovered Santana.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he put him on when I think Paul Butterfield was too drunk to take the stage, and Carlos Santana was amongst some of the people that he quickly recruited. And of course Mike Bloomfield, one of my favourite guitarists, who had passed away some years before that. He and Carlos Santana acknowledges Mike Bloomfield as being one of his big influences. Mike Bloomfield worked with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, but then branched out on his own. And as I might have said to you, I think in the last session, one of the first time I really heard of Carlos Santana was his guest appearance on the live adventures of Mike Bloomfield and Al Cooper.
Oh, okay.
A double live album from the two guys that had bought Super Sessions, minus Steve Stills. Steve Stills was in the studio version, but wasn't playing live, and evidently on the third night or something, Mike Bloomfield, who was supposed to be suffering from insomnia, was just too ill to take the stage and had to be sedated, probably self-sedated. Knowing Mike Bloomfield, insomnia may have been an excuse.
Byproduct of the effects.
And Al Cooper had guest guitarists like Carlos Santana and Elvin Bishop come in and work with him, and that's features on the vinyl version on side 3 of the four-side album. But so that was when I first heard it. And this track opens up with Bill Graham doing the announcements which he always did, or always seemed to do, and
And
then into that live track.
Yeah, of course. I guess the other thing as well to mention, the second track, Somewhere in Heaven, of course, once again dedicated to his long lost friends there, but I really felt the sadness through his guitar in this track. It was just highly emotionally charged, I guess, song.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and the other thing as well, these 3 tracks, they're not short tracks. All of them are over 7.5 minute long. You know, the Somewhere in Heaven's nearly 10 minutes, for example. And it is an incredible track, you know. So this is some incredible work out of Santana.
Yep.
I don't know what to say. These first 3 tracks to me are pretty much perfect Santana songs.
Yeah, they blend. They meld into one. And Milagro, of course, is a the word, I'm told, it means miracle in Spanish.
Yeah, Milagro, yeah.
Milagro. And Carlos Santana and his wife at the time, his former wife, Deborah King, had set up a non-profit foundation called Milagro.
Correct, yeah.
And
still goes on to this day, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. He does a lot of charity work, of course. But yeah, it's the whole track is kind of I guess one of the other reasons it failed was because there's not really any short tracks on this album as well. Nothing that's really radio friendly, I suppose.
Well, make somebody happy, I think, would be the real FM radio hit. I think if you were searching through the tracks looking for something, I'm not sure if it was a single. It could have been, but I don't think it charted very well, as the album itself did not chart.
I believe,
well.
if I remember back to when I recorded the retro review on Supernatural, I think this was the first album that didn't get at least a gold status.
Okay.
I think I might be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure this was his first that didn't get gold status.
Yep.
The other things as well, Adios contains a part by Miles Davis at the end there, so that's a nice little touch, of course. Miles and Carlos had a lot of stories about Miles. There was what was it, one of the stories he was talking about a couple of times when he saw Miles, you know, and he came out and we would give him this big hug and be like right up in his face, like this close to him. And he said he hugged him but lifted his feet up so he was hanging from his neck, and and Santana's like, "Hi, Miles." But he goes, "I loved him. He was such an eccentric character, but of course highly personable type of fella, and they worked well to." They did some live recordings much later on. That'll be in part 3. We might touch on there, but yeah, they did work together with a fair few parts. So yeah, you know, here is a guitarist saddened by the deaths of 2 very close friends to him. And I feel that energy on this album, you know? Yeah, it's not that high party energy that would be, I guess, his 80s stuff, which would come up, but I do feel the emotion that he's putting through these songs.
Yep.
So, yeah, look, this is, I think this album cops a lot of flack, and undeservedly. I think it's actually much highly, I rate it higher than, well, a few of the upcoming albums, to be fair. And that's why I think I will actually give it the rank of a Carolina Reaper.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I would agree with that. I like parts of it. There's it loses its momentum, I think, after track 3 occasionally. It jumps around a bit. I particularly enjoyed the 7th track, Aqua Cueva Kea, whatever, if I pronounce that properly. It features, it finishes off with like an Indian style chorus and I actually looked it up to see who the band or who the singers were. It was a group called the Bad River Singers. But yeah, it has that Indian kind of chant.
Okay.
Yeah. So not a bad album.
What would you give it on the ranking scale?
Oh, I think I'd agree. Look, you know, a Carolina Reaper. I rate that higher than a lot of the earlier albums, and even though it was one of his least commercially successful albums.
I think it's aged pretty well. You know what's surprising? I know Rolling Stone get wrong a lot of the times. Yeah. But at the time of this, when that album came out, they gave it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I wouldn't agree with 4 out of 5, but they definitely liked it. They definitely enjoyed it. Other than that, it received pretty lukewarm reviews, but yeah, Yeah, look, I guess with a bit of age, it's aged better than a lot of the next coming
It's
albums.
well worth a listen or two.
Yes, definitely. Aged better than what's coming up next. So the next track we have coming up, album. The next album we'll be having a look at is Spirits Dancing in the Flesh, the 1990 album. And, what a 90s sounding album. This whole cover is screaming 90s to me, but what I really hated was that intro with the bloody chicken and the cheap sounding keyboard at the beginning. And what the crap is this? It's... I don't know. It sounded even outdated probably back then. I can't imagine, listening to it now, and it's incredibly cheesy. Yeah. I really hated that intro.
I think this is one of those albums that I did listen to. I didn't buy.
Good.
I listened to somewhere. Either I heard a couple of tracks on FM radio, or maybe you used to be able to go into record bars and they'd spin you an album. You sometimes get ushered into a booth and put some headphones on and listen to it.
I think you can pay me to put this one on. This is just so yeesh.
But yeah, look, I think there's a comment to make, I suppose, about Santana, and I liken him not so much his style and music, of course, but he's a bit like Van Morrison, say. Big in the 60s, or in Van's case, but big in the 60s, 70s. But they've continued bringing out album of new material, which you've got to give them credit for. I mean, a lot of the bands from that era, 70s, 80s, 60s, definitely. 70s, 80s, they just cashed in and kept on. I mean, if you look at Fleetwood Mac, for example, they're still touring the world, or last I heard they were. But they really haven't. I mean, they've done a couple of albums.
Have they done anything post 2000?
The Dance or something. I don't even know. That was post 2000.
I don't think they've recorded anything.
So they just basically are cashing in on two albums. They're two big albums.
The Rumours and.
Of course, Fleetwood Mac have a link with Carlos Santana because he did their song.
Yeah, that's true.
And even like bands like the Eagles.
Yeah.
They've
only had one album since
had a double album out, I think, 1990s or early 2000s. Something from Eden.
Gardens from Eden?
Garden out of Eden? Or no, that's In the Garden of Eden.
I think it was Gardens of Eden. Something on a desert or some shit like
fresh
that.
Fresh out of Eden or running out of... Or,
I have a hunch, though. You mentioned Van Morrison. I think he released an album just recently.
He did, yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Yeah. Van and Carlos...
I mean, I can't stand Van Morrison personally, but...
I quite like both. But Van Morrison, he's still releasing... he's still doing original material. So he's not just touring the world singing Gloria.
Okay.
And Moondance, and some of his... more later albums have been very good. I mean, I find anything by Santana or Van Morrison, even a not great album, to be still listenable and good.
Yeah.
One or two exceptions. Van's on his latest album is a bit of a rant about vaccinations and lockdowns, and he's gone into the ante. But look, as I said, they're somewhat both of them follow a similar formula.
They still go out and record. Yeah,
but you've got to give them credit for remaining current and producing new original material and not just living off their back catalogue.
Well, speaking of, actually, I think since we last recorded this episode, I think Santana's put out 4 or 5 new singles and a live record.
Yeah.
I believe most of them are pretty much re-recordings of previous songs, but, hey, it's the thought that counts, Rolling Stones are doing the same shit, and they'll continue to do that for the next 50 more years until Keith Richards eventually dies.
He'll be the last one left.
Yeah, he'll be... nuclear holocaust will happen, and he'll be still surviving, going, I'm going to get my pack sheet. Hey, look who I survived past. So, look, Gypsy Woman, why the hell did they recover this? I just felt like it was a shit cover. Nope, and nope. Why not be Black Magic Woman and Gypsy Queen as opposed to whatever the hell this is? I don't know.
Yeah, I found it's very middle of the road. The opening track makes you wonder if you might be playing the wrong album.
I don't know where...
It's overproduced. It sounds to me a bit like a musical. The standout track is Jingo. I found track number 9, Jingo La Bar.
which I think was
was
a
a cover. Yeah, it was a cover of their own song, but a reminder of how good they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of the catch about it all. It's just like, okay, hey, we covered 2 of our old songs that you really loved.
Yep.
Hey, remember us? I mean, I thought Soweto wasn't a bad track.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely had a hit like that. I thought that was a good song, that one there. But just the odd sounds.
Track number 3, It's a Jungle Out There, to me sounds like a song from a failed musical. It sounds almost Michael Jackson style, we started writing musical, but we only got 3 tracks written, so we recorded one of them. We couldn't fill in the rest,
It's like what was the word I'm thinking of? Cognitive dissonance or something like that. It's just I don't know what the hell was going on. Too many cooks and not enough ingredients or some shit. Because seriously, it's like aged milk. This album, it's terrible.
Yeah.
The synths are just horrific, I should say. On the whole, it's just.
I mean, track number 6 has a little salute to Jimi Hendrix
and John Coltrane.
I
don't really recognise
Third Stone from the Sun. Yeah. Oh, you can recognise. You pick that.
I can recognise that the couple of seconds from Hendrix, but I'm like, okay, don't really.
Yeah,
not familiar with John Coltrane, but you would.
I know his stuff, but I couldn't pick the John Coltrane. Track so much. But,
I didn't mind that song, to be honest. I wrote here
the
medley was decent, with a great addition of the Hendrix riff at the very end. Look, Carlos Santana, he does some pretty good covers. He has his whole career, and he will still do it for the rest of his career, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
number 8, Who's That Lady? I had a note here saying it should be called What's That Shit? It's just a bad track.
No, it should be called Goodness and Mercy. Yep, so this is definitely a jalapeno.
Sorry, Carlos.
This is a jalapeno for me. It's just yuck. It's terrible.
I put it a Thai chili, but I could agree with jalapeno. I just couldn't rank a Santana album at the very bottom, I think. But yeah, this is as close. This is probably...
You're going to rank it at the bottom? We're going to have trouble with part 2 then. No, this is, outdated 90s era. It's outdated 80s era sound in a 90s album. And,
contractual obligation.
Here's your album, fuck you.
I'm going down to the Baja Peninsula for a holiday.
The next album we're following up on is Blues for Salvador, which I think was his last solo album I've written here. I don't think he's done any solo albums, but what is a solo album from Santana anyway?
Yeah, I had that. Very difficult to pick a Santana solo album from the band.
Yeah.
Especially considering the band name.
And on top of that as well, is they've got such a revolving door of bloody musicians, you wouldn't notice the difference, really.
Yeah.
From what I understand, this actually won him a Grammy in 1989, his first.
Yeah.
Not his last, because the next 20 would come from Supernatural alone. 9, actually, I think it was.
I mean, Carlos Santana's solo material and some of his solo albums, I listened to. The Swing of Delight I bought when it came out.
Oh,
I bought that on
okay.
cassette.
God, I hope they chewed. I hope the machine chewed it up.
Well,
we'll go to that later. We'll go to that later.
But this, very difficult to pick as a Santana solo album. It's not like, if you look at bands like Genesis and Phil Collins' solo career, you can pick Phil Collins solo.
Yeah.
You can pick Genesis band.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Santana's such a dominant figure in the Santana band. He's the only consistent member.
Well, he's a centered point, really.
Lays, it's all wrapped around his guitar work, and that, the solo material is,
It's not really a solo album, truly, is it? I mean, like you were saying, I guess Phil Collins, when he did his bloody,
Face Value or
Face
something.
Value, No Jacket, or whatever it is.
No Jacket Required.
Yeah, or even, what's the other guy from Genesis?
Tony.
Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel
and his solo stuff,
yeah.
or would become solo stuff, very different to Genesis. Again, even Genesis in the 80s still sounded different to Phil Collins in the 80s.
Yeah, and Mike Rutherford, who, the guitarist with Genesis, he ventured out on his own and had a couple of hits and albums and all that, but it was, again, very, very different.
Yeah.
Mike Rutherford wasn't the singer with Genesis.
No, but I think that really boils down to the fact that it wasn't a revolving door at Genesis. It was pretty centered members, you know, and they each contributed a fair amount, while Santana's band were pretty much, I don't want to write them off, but they're pretty much studio musicians.
A lot of them, yeah.
You know, and I mean, percussionists, okay, cool, yep, no worries, but they're very interchangeable, except for some of the earlier guys, I guess, which, if you want to be a fanatic, you know, Jose was bloody the best percussionist, sure, okay, if you want to say that, but, you know, at the end of the day, he's playing 3 bongo drums. Sorry, but it is a bit of an easy instrument. Anyway, look, it really boils down to trying to get the band to gel, and for this, it doesn't really sound any different to any other stuff that would come later, but at the time, it does sound different to what was his previous album before that, Freedom. So I found like it was on track number 2, for example, more stripped back in the song itself, you know, while the album that came up was more layered, I guess, and stuff like that. This one was much more stripped back, more back to basics kind of sound, and it was good. Yep. I liked, you know, it was a return to form kind of thing for him. But yeah, it was a pretty decent album.
And tracks like Train and Mingus, you know, tributes, I suppose, to 2 of his favourite jazz musicians, John Coltrane and Charles Mingus.
Okay, yeah.
You know, so yeah, no, I didn't mind this album. It didn't rank all that high, but it wasn't a bad album.
It wasn't bad. Sorry, you go.
I gave it a Ghost Pepper.
Okay, actually, I gave it a Ghost Pepper too. Yeah, I thought it wasn't bad. I had a few other things as well about this album. It's got a Buddy Miles from Jimi Hendrix's Band of the Gypsies joins on track 5, Deeper Dig Deeper. So I found that a little interesting tidbit as well as jazz drummer Tony Williams joins on track 4. You're all familiar with Tony Williams?
Tony Williams, yeah. Well, he was the drummer with Miles Davis.
Correct, yes.
He was called the Mozart of drumming. He was only very young when he started out.
Ah, okay. Yeah, okay. I would have
passed away, but
I would have thought Bonzo. No, not Bonzo. Was he?
Well, probably in rock music, but
I
John
guess.
Bonham. But no, Tony Williams was an excellent drummer.
Yeah, okay.
And both, Buddy Miles and Tony Williams have both appeared on other albums with Santana.
Yeah, fair enough then. Yeah, there is also a live track. I think it was. I can't recall which one it said here. Oh, Now That You Know, which is a bit. Oh, the 10-minute track.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a bit meh, nothing special. But look, you know.
Well, sometimes they take a live track and use it as a filler.
Yeah, I mean Hannibal is a good track on that one as well. But yeah, the last 2 tracks I think, and the Bella for me, very solid.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, definitely it goes.
A lot of his regular players, Alan Pascoe, Paul Reckow, and Chester Thompson.
Yes, Chester Thompson.
His brother plays in Genesis.
Yes, and he would appear, I believe, on Supernatural for 1 or 2 tracks.
Yeah.
Or was he a studio musician? I can't remember.
His brother was
definitely there.
Backup. I think he's the backup. He's the concert drummer for Genesis.
Yeah.
Or was Genesis ceased?
Yeah,
ceased trading.
Just now.
Yeah.
They had the wheel on Phil Collins for the last song.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. But yeah, no, definitely a Ghost Pepper. Pretty good album. The following album that we have up next is 1987's Freedom. You're going to have freedom from this album here? I don't know about you, but from the opening, it's got that 80s vibe hard, and I don't know. 80s songs in particular can be a hit and miss thing. You can have some real good ones, and then you can have some real shit ones. But it definitely reeks of that 80s sound.
Yeah.
You know?
It's got Buddy Miles on vocals.
Yes, he's rejoined for this one.
Yep. And of course, Carlos Santana and Buddy Miles did a live album 2 or 3 years before that.
Okay. Okay.
Where was it recorded? I think it might have
Europe or
been
something,
Hawaii.
was it? Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay. And I bought that. I bought that double live Buddy Miles and Carlos Santana on vinyl.
Yeah, right. Was that the Viva La... No, that was a different album. That was a different one.
No. It had a number of long tracks on it, and including, I think side 2 was almost just one track called Freeform Funkified Filth. And it was just
now Carlos Santana
and Buddy Miles, because Buddy Miles, of course, was the drummer.
Okay, so
who was a member of Band of Gypsies with Jimi Hendrix.
Just a massive free jam, I'm guessing. Yeah.
But it had them changes and some Buddy Miles stuff as well as Carlos Santana. I liked it. It's not that long a live album, but it just melds. I think there's 5 tracks on side 1 and 1 on side 2, and they just kind of flow together.
Perfect. That's all you can ask for with something like that.
Yep.
If there's a good jam, you'll listen to it. I don't care how long it is. Yep. Look, the first track is both parts good and bad. It's got a decent hook, but at the same time, it just kind of falls short, falls a bit flat, I guess. We also had the return of Greg Rowley on keys.
Yep.
So, yeah, there was a few actually members, I think Alfonso as well, rejoining, I think around this time, or maybe a couple of years prior, but there were a few members who were coming back into the fold on these albums in particular. So, it's got, Greg Rowley on keys, and I'd say that's a pretty nice point, but I don't really feel his vibe on this album, that's for sure. No. I wrote here, Love Is You sounds like Santana jamming to elevator music.
Yes.
So that gives you, I guess, an idea on where their headspace was in regards to writing of this.
Yeah, I found this a boppy kind of album. I don't think I had listened to this one until I was doing this. The title track, or the Songs of Freedom track, and Deeper Dig Deeper, they were to me good bouncy tracks, but nothing I would. This is not an album I'd necessarily go back to and play.
And Deeper Dig Deeper was actually on his was on the Blues for Santana, Blues for Salvador album.
Yeah,
so right. It was a re-recorded song. You didn't even have the courtesy to wait 20 years.
That's right. The final track I found, Victim of Circumstance, it's almost hard rock.
Okay.
And I think from what I read with regards to Santana's, time, or that at this particular time, I think he himself was pushing more towards a jazz orientation, but his producers, managers,
they wanted
record
rock.
companies, they wanted rock. They said, you'll miss the boat, you'll be pushed off the bus.
I definitely can feel that in the album. It's much more rock orientated.
Yeah. I think he was trying to satisfy.
Yeah, it kind of is a clash, kind of like the album cover here. It's kind of a clash of just shit. It doesn't know where it wants to be at times, but Praise feels a bit out of place. I guess it's too poppy. It doesn't feel like a Santana song. Mandela is an odd piece. It works somehow a bit.
Yeah, I think to me that's the standout track, Mandela.
Yeah, I didn't mind that one. I thought for me it was She Can't Let Go and Before We Go.
Oh, yeah.
Oddly enough, go on both of them.
I think Mandela finished off with a bit of flute playing. Well, what sounds to me like a bit of flute playing. I thought,
with Jethro Tull.
Has Ian Anderson turned up?
And my introduction, the intro band, Ian Anderson. But yeah, look, what else was there? Before We Go was co-written by Jim. Oh my God, I can't write my. Jim Capaldi from Traffic fame.
Drummer from Traffic.
Yes, and that is a good track as well, I said.
Yep.
What else was there? True 80s album by famous 70s musician that is below average. To me, it is a Thai Chilli album. It's a disjointed, dated, and missed opportunity to get back to roots.
Yeah,
so Thai Chilli.
Thai Chilli, yeah, I agree.
Alright, we go back into the next one here, and we've got Beyond Appearances with 1985, that release here. This album cover is... I'm not even sure what to make of it. It's neonish. It's definitely that 80s kind of vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just the vibe.
The vibe.
As I'll edit something there quickly. But yes, the first song sounds like a song by The Police. It has a great energy and sound. I didn't mind that. I like The Police. So for me, that's a bonus. But it does sound a bit disjointed when it comes to Santana. But look, I mean, he brings his guitar to the mix. And
yeah, again, I think this is one where he's more. It's more pop music,
Yeah.
short tracks, all vocals. I think.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. So I again, I'm not sure if I had listened to this album, I might have given up on some of Santana's stuff by then. But
I couldnn't blame you.
because don't forget when this was released, and those times, if you wanted to listen to an album other than borrowing it from a friend or going to a record bar, you had to buy it. You know, you had to invest the money and
Yeah.
And
kids these days don't know how easy it is to
generally-
just access
yeah.
music.
you generally try to ration what you're going to buy. You know, I used to set myself, all right, I'll buy 1 or 2 albums a week. You just can't buy everything by everybody, and I was never one, even with some of my favourite artists like Neil Young and so on, I never went out and bought every one of their albums. You know, like
You wouldn't want to,
'cause you get
especially his
sick and tired
80s,
of it. Yeah,
especially the 80s
yeah,
era.
Yeah, that's right. And every artist has their lulls and their period of where it gets a bit ho hum and
Yeah.
and I think Beyond Appearances also was one for Santana.
Yeah, it was definitely
Track
bit of an
number
one.
7 track number 6 Ask Who Loves You, and track number 7 tells you I'm the one who loves you. I don't know whether that was intended, you know. Like,
yeah, was that an intention? Was that a two-parter? I don't get what's going on. Okay, I never even noticed that one. Oh, you could have left it a bit. You could have left a bit of question mark there.
Yeah.
I did have a note as well, actually, here. Greg Walker and Alex Lingerton joining the vocal duties. So it looks like there's actually 2 of them. I think Greg Walker was
That
one of
might
the
have-
originals, I believe.
Yes. I mean, he did sometimes use more than one vocalist, of course, on an album, and I'm not sure whether this was the one where Greg Walker might have been coming in or departing. I'm not sure, and the other one, but yes, he did use. Mind you, Carlos Santana himself often credits himself with vocals as well, but
God, would he? He'd be
I
writing
think
it.
he
Surely
might
he
be a
wouldn't
little
sing
bit
in it.
of-
I don't think he sings, does he?
I think he chants.
Yeah, yeah, that counts.
Whether they've got his microphone on or not when he's live, but yeah.
The other part as well, I actually had a note here. There were 2 Chester Thompsons in the band at this point as well.
Yes, there were. Yeah, there was Chester.
Here is Chester Thompson? Yes.
Yep, there were. There was a two Chester Thompsons. It's not a mistake. It was Chester D. Thompson, I think it is, and
Chester
Thompson.
T. Thompson, I think it was, or
Yeah.
something. It was very,
Yeah, it was
very
weird.
similar.
It was weird.
Chester D. Thompson on drums
Yeah.
and Chester C. Thompson, oh my God, really, on keyboard. Okay, so...
I wonder if they called them D and C. Hey D,
Yeah.
give us a bit on keyboards, will you? Hey T, C.
I'm looking for Chester. Yes.
Hey.
No,
Chester
not you,
Thompson.
him. God, that would
It's
be...
an unusual name to get double
Yeah.
up in a situation like that where you're playing in the one band.
Yeah,
Imagine being on stage and introducing, I'd like to introduce Chester Thompson on keyboard.
Walk
And
on
here's
stage.
Chester Thompson. The audience are already going to go, he's lost it.
he's had one too many. I can't state
Yeah.
this anymore. But it was that was an odd one. I had a note here that Alex sounds a lot like he was trying to capture Phil Collins' vocal range in here.
Yeah.
Styles, for example, written in the sand. So I don't know. To me, when I was listening to that track, I thought, did I say written in sand? I don't think that's even. Yeah, written in sand. Sorry. It does come across as Phil Collins-ish.
Yeah.
You know.
So.
I mean, I'm not complaining. Phil Collins is a decent vocalist.
Yeah. It's an attempt to be that rock band that I think his management and record company wanted.
Definitely trying to emulate the sound, I guess, of a famous... Well, Phil Collins was probably the biggest star of the 80s. So
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you know,
they
he was
would've
the
been-
Elton John of the 80s,
They would have been pointing to Phil Collins' material and saying, you got to sound like that.
Which is kind of funny, because thinking about it, I mean, the guy looked nothing like a rock star in the 80s. He was half bowled in by that stage, you know. He's a rock star. We want him to look... Okay, well, he's talented. Sure, we'll do that then. We'll run with that. Yeah, so...
Well, look at Elton John.
Well, that's true, actually, yeah.
Looks
Elton
more
John
like a
wasn't
bank clerk.
He's an accountant. You don't think he was good at count? Okay, we won't go into that joke. There's too many ways to end that one, so type in below what you thought would be the punchline.
I even saw a review of, I don't know, Pink Floyd or David Gilmour solo. But someone said, looking at David Gilmour solo, I'm looking at him, or looking at David Gilmour on stage, he looks more like a London architect.
Yeah, okay. I believe it. His 80s.
Particularly when he had shorter hair and then.
Yeah, well, when he cut it down, he had his long flowing hair from the 70s, I guess. We all get old, we all change our hair. That's why I wear a hat most of the time to avoid what's beneath it. The first half of this album I thought sounded better than the second half. It kind of just, falls away after that and becomes bland and nothingness.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a surprisingly good album. It doesn't exactly sound like a Santana album, though. It just, I don't know how to say it, really. It's the furthest away Santana's ever been from his sound, but at the same time keeping it a bit in line compared to some of these other albums. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting album, but it's just not a real Santana album, I guess, as I would say.
Yeah.
A decent surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's listenable, but I wouldn't have it on high rotation.
No. I did say this was the best album from the 80s so far, which is not much to go from because there was only 2 albums before that. So maybe this is the best album from the 80s altogether. Maybe. We'll have to see. But, yeah. For me, where did I rate this one? I guess Ghost Pepper.
Yeah, I probably went more towards Thai Chili.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't particularly like it. It's
I'll bump it down to Thai Chili.
Too much of a formula. Formulaic.
Yeah, it becomes a bit bland.
Missed its mark.
Yeah, it becomes a bit too bland later on in the album, so I guess, I'll bump it down to Thai Chili as well there. An interesting fact as well, I was thinking to myself just before we were recording this yesterday, is how many of these songs actually made it to Carlos Santana's This Is Santana playlist. So obviously every musician that you'll see, they have kind of their best of, their favourite works or whatever in a playlist, as you would know from Spotify. And I thought to myself, out of every one of these albums that we're going over, how many actually made it onto his... I think it was 55 songs. All right, it's a near 4-hour playlist. If you had a guess, how many songs would you guess?
What, from this album?
No. From this era of all these albums that we're going over.
Look, I don't know. I mean, the Essential Santana or whatever, all those kind of compilation things. Make Somebody Happy. I've heard on some of those tracks. Half a dozen.
Half a dozen?
Yep.
It was 4.
Okay.
And nowhere near the...
And is that chosen by Carlos himself? Do you know?
I don't know. It's probably some management thing, but I was looking at it and going, look, it might be 5 or something. It might be from a live recording or something. Yeah. But I was looking at it going, shit, really?
Well, some of these albums, they do date. I mean, they are aimed at a particular era. And
yeah, they definitely are.
If he was trying to emulate Phil Collins and the success that Phil Collins had, which, I suppose from the point of view of his record company and management, they would have wanted.
Yeah.
He had some big selling albums in the late in the early 70s.
Yeah, of course, and that will be the hard part, of course, getting to that part of the thing. I mean, yeah, Look, the 80s,
like a lot of artists from the 60s, 70s, as they got into the 80s and disco and rock, more boppy rock, and then of course the
they were trying to make it with the times.
Yeah, the advent of some more grungier material.
Well, grunge killed off pretty much all the 70s artists when it came down to it.
Yeah, and they just found it hard to be any particular meaning.
It's inevitable. It's an inevitability of music, really. Yeah, you're gonna make it big. You probably got 10 years, I say, and then after that, you're going to just fall away because obviously the newer generation comes in. They don't give a shit about Santana. Yeah. They want to listen to Billy Joel or some shit. I don't know.
What about Billy Joel? They probably want to listen to punk, stuff
like
that.
Well, punk also was a big killer, I guess, as well. And,
I read once that Johnny Rotten bumped into Sid Vicious the first time they met, evidently, and Johnny Rotten was wearing a T-shirt saying, "I hate Pink Floyd." And that's what drew him to him. He said, me too.
Actually, weirdly enough, there was an interaction between Sid Vicious and Freddie Mercury.
Oh, yeah.
And it was around about the time of 75, 76. They were recording in the same studio, I believe, or pretty much in the same area. And Freddie Mercury had just come out saying he wanted to bring opera to the people.
Yep.
And Sex Pistols were Sex Pistols, shooting up heroin in the middle of recording, and, a bass
Proud
player.
of their beer guts.
Yeah, and Sid, well, not even beer guts, they were just... Anyway, but, and the bassist wasn't even recording the bass lines, the guitarist was. Thank you, Johnny Rotten, for that. But anyway, Sid Vicious bumps into Freddie Mercury in the middle of the hallway or something, and he makes some quip at him about, whatever, not being, how's that opera going to the people? And Freddie turns around, grabs him by the scuff of his shirt, lifts him against the wall, and he goes, "You fuck off with that. I'll beat you any day this week." He was rough as guts for Freddie Mercury. Yeah, and I did watch the movie just recently, and I felt they missed an opportunity with that. That could have been a nice little scene to show that the guy was a badass. So, all right. Well, we just mentioned dated music, so we're going to launch into Havana Moon, his solo album here, 1983's Havana Moon, another solo album. Okay. Blues rock grounded record compared to previous albums. I got noted. I don't know what to make of this shit. It's it's an interesting album. It's very weird though. A lot of songs covers. There's a lot of cover tracks here as well. What is it? Lightning by Booker T. Jones, I think. Yep. But most of these covers kind of remind me, I guess, of like yacht rock or something like that, or lounge acts. Yeah. It's very average. This whole album is pretty damn average.
Yeah, I had listened to this album years ago and wasn't overly impressed. I thought it was pleasant, but it wasn't something I'd go back and listen to again. But I liked it more this time around. I liked his solo material more on this listen.
Yeah, okay.
The album starts off very rock and roll with the first track, "Watch Your Step."
Definitely.
Okay, that sounds, the title track, of course, is by Chuck Berry. So that gives you an indication.
Yes.
And number 2, of course, co-written with Booker T. So you got an idea of how the album will go. It belies the cover photo. You've got this peaceful looking, I look at that cover and it's almost like a caravanserai cover. You think, this is going to be lovely Latin jazz you could put on a Saturday night dinner. And
okay.
And it'll just flow, quiet guitar work, Carlos Santana on his own with a couple of musicians backing him up, but it's not. I track number 4, which I quite like, Mudhouse, but he sounds like J.J. Cale. He's playing like a J.J. Cale kind of style.
It kind of jumps around a lot. There's it'll be quiet one track, and then the next track it'll be this loud, obnoxious kind of rocking thing. And I just don't think it knew what it wanted to be.
No, he seemed to be all over the place again. I mean, he might have been, some of this stuff. Obviously, artists record in different ways. Sometimes they might record a couple of tracks, in London, then they're off to America for a while. They record a couple of tracks there. It could be months and months between tracks.
Yeah,
I find some of the better albums are probably ones where the band or they're all focused together and they're, like Exile on Main Street, Rolling Stones. They all crash into one big house in France, and
that kind of works better as well.
It's not to say that with this idea of recording in different places, different times, months apart is not good. I mean, I'm sure there's great albums that have been done like that.
Probably.
Of course.
Usually not.
But this does sound a little bit like, he did a couple of tracks, then he decided to, go on holidays or do a tour. Then he came back to it, and even that title track, Havana Moon, it's, to me, played with a real Coltrane beat.
Yeah, okay.
I can see a Love Supreme in that.
Yeah, okay. I didn't even hear that the first time through. I noted hear that for me when I was playing it through Tales of Kilimanjaro, the track that stood out. That was the first track I enjoyed. Yeah. So there were 6 tracks that I listened to and went, yeah. And then I finally got the Tales of Kilimanjaro and, that's a good track.
Yeah, which, that was when I first saw that track, I thought, that was the name of a Miles Davis album, Tales of something from Kilimanjaro.
Was it?
I think so.
I thought it was a Herbie Hancock. Now I've got to look that up.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
If you just want to go on for a minute, I can look up something.
Of course, you got Alan Pasca there, who had worked with Santana quite a bit, and he himself is a solo jazz artist as well.
Okay.
Daughter of the Night is the real Santana FM material.
Okay, yeah.
That is a track that I have heard on compilations and other things, and probably on the radio. One of them, I think, has got Willie Nelson on vocals. I'm not sure, but they all went to
There's a Willie Nelson.
They all went to Mexico. Listen to this, the vocals on that. I must admit, I didn't check on this, but I've got a note here that sounds like Willie Nelson on vocals, but it's got a real Jimmy Buffett feel about it, you know. So
imagine Willie Nelson and Santana jamming for a song.
Yeah,
okay.
And they all went to Mexico. I mean, as I said,
as one does in America.
Got I didn't look up to see if Jimmy Buffett had done this song, because he does a lot of songs and material about that part of the world.
Yeah.
And and I'm pretty sure it's Willie Nelson on vocals. So
if
I don't know whether
there's not even a note. There's not even a note or anything on here.
Oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a guy who sings sounds a lot like, or is able to do a Willie Nelson.
Well, whoever you are, if you're not Willie Nelson, congratulations. That's impressive. I had here Daughter as a cover of a Jim Capaldi disco song, which is a very odd choice, and it just doesn't work on this album, considering disco had been dead for about 4 years. Yeah, I don't think that's going to really land well here. Also, Verde Tropical has a Carlos... Sorry, the last track, Verde Tropical, has Carlos Santana's dad singing on it, and this song was actually used to serenade his mother.
Okay. Yeah,
so a nice little, I guess, nod to family, of course, there. But overall, this is just a bunch of weird songs which were covered that sounds like a lounge act Santana, which lacks focus and direction, in my opinion. So
yeah, well, this gave me a new appreciation of his solo work, but as I've said a few times, it's very hard to differentiate.
Yeah, I feel like if you can't put an album together in in a very small period, you probably shouldn't.
And I'm only making that assumption. He might have recorded this one afternoon.
Yeah, look, he might have. If he did, I'd be very disappointed. But I would assume that he probably recorded over several instances, and I think that's where it suffered. You know, if you can't record it all in one outing, then you're going to end up with a Chinese democracy kind of situation where, there's disjointedness, and that's what it feels like. For me, Easy Jalapeno, I will just never listen to this album again. Except, actually, without Tales of Kilimanjaro, that's actually saved to a playlist of mine now. That I thought that was a really good track.
I gave this to Ghost Pepper, but yeah, I can understand that you, because it's probably more in, linking or more like some of the material or some of the stuff that I like now that quieter at times. I mean, there's some rock on this, but
yeah.
I
guess I can understand from your perspective why you would give it such a rating. I just can't, and it's not that I don't like jazz or nothing like that or those areas. It's just that I just can't believe that this is an album by Santana. So yeah, I can't. I've just had a look over. I couldn't see if Mount Kilimanjaro was an album by Miles, but if it was, I believe it because he obviously appreciated Miles.
Filet di Kilimanjaro. Am I getting that mixed up? I don't know.
Nothing I can see here about Kilimanjaro. Maybe it was a track.
Yeah, maybe.
Sketches of Spain. No.
It's an album from the second quintet, which Miles worked. One of these albums, I don't know if it's that one. I made a note on it.
Oh, hang on, Files de Kilimanjaro. Yeah,
Files de Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what the I don't speak. I assume that's a bit French.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means. Please translate it below, people. I have no idea. But anyway, yes, there's the link. There you go. So obviously that was a bit of a nod to Miles Davis there. That's nice. Yeah.
Buenos dias, got to go. Tengo que obedecer mi corazón. They all went to Mexico.
With the next one, we have Shango, 1982 album. Shango is a god, which is a big call for this album. That's my first note. Yeah, this is just... Oh, look, Havana Moon was more shit than this one. Hold On was co-written by Ian Thomas, I wrote here as well.
Yeah.
The second track. Who was a singer, not too big, but worked with Daryl Braithwaite. Okay, if that's your calling card, then I'm sorry to say that's horrible. Yeah, sorry, I don't know who Ian Thomas is. I don't think... Even when I looked him up on his like Wikipedia and stuff, that even with Spotify, I couldn't find this guy. So, sure, there's another cover. Santana does another cover. That's no surprise that it will never end. But, yeah, it's not bad, that song. I mean, pop, very poppy.
Yeah.
You know, hold on. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, holding on. Holding on for a better track. But, yeah, Night Hunting, again, is a cover. Nowhere to Run is a cover of a Kiss song, which I found very weird.
I wrote down that Nowhere to Run was the hit, the hit song. I didn't realise it was a Kiss song.
It was. It's complicated. It is a cover of I think.
Because Russ Ballard, I've noticed, I think he writes a few tracks that Santana's recorded over the years.
Yeah, where is it? Sorry, Nowhere to Run.
Yeah,
Russ Ballard. He was like the unofficial Kiss member, I think. He would write some of their material. This wouldn't appear on an official Kiss
He's the one without
album.
the makeup.
Yeah. He's the one who gets to go home after everything and get paid at the same time. No, he, from what I understand, the song itself was like a B-sides. And I think appeared on one of their Kiss's B-sides albums, but was considered the hit of the B-sides album. I listened to it, and it's just... Look, I mean, if you don't like Kiss, then you're not going to like that track. I don't mind a bit of Kiss, but I didn't like that track. It's that 80s, late 70s era of Kiss where they went into that, well, shit era, like a few of the 70s musicians.
When did they go to a good era?
Come on now, Detroit Rock and all the rest. Anyway.
They were a bit gimmicky for my life.
I can understand that.
Good live band, I would imagine. I'd never seen them live and never
Don't
would
think I
want
could
to.
give Gene Simmons any money. He's such an asshole. No,
He's very mercenary.
Just hate his comments in general. The guy's a twat. Anyway.
Yeah, I had this as another very smooth offering from Santana, pop style, FM friendly, well produced, nice set of songs.
Yeah.
Nowhere to Run I had down as the hit, as I said. New York, I think, was a standout track on side one.
Look how many bloody people wrote that
I know,
track.
that's the whole band. I think that's everybody who ever...
Why wouldn't you just write Santana?
I think that's everybody in the... Well, they can't with this band. It's not like the Doors. They still credit the songs to the Doors because there was only 4 members, but until they were only 3. But if you put
why is that?
A bit hard to put Santana also when it's the surname of one of the guys in the band. So
for legal reasons, we have to
future
include 12 artists.
About whether... But you'd have to hope that, if you were Armando Peraza or someone, Graham Lear, that it sold a lot of copies to make it worthwhile, because otherwise you're only getting about a 10th of a share of one track.
I know Spotify does like
You'd
to
want
pay
to be
their artists really well. Yeah, how does that go for you?
think-
This 1 cent that you've earned for the month, you've got to
here's
divide
your check.
that by 10.
Here's your check. It'll cost you more to go and bank it. Hope they get paid electronically.
Oh, yes.
I got that it's a good Santana album.
It's decent. New York was a good track.
There's almost reggae on side 2 on track 4. Let Me Inside.
Yeah.
Kind of a reggae track. To me, the standout track was Shango, the title track.
Oh, okay.
The
You had
last
Shango
track.
as that.
Yeah.
The 1 minute 40 track.
I when I heard this, I thought, why do they only do it 1 minute 44? Couldn't they? They could have cut out 1 or 2 of the other tracks and made this a 7 minute.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you for that one. I had New York and Body Surfing. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a bit all over the place and kind of lacks any real Carlos guitar work as well.
Yeah.
Which gives way for a lot of disco and yacht rock, and fuck that noise. So, yeah, unfortunately then Shango gets kind of shelved for what could have been. I guess, like you said, Shango was a bit more back to it, but I mean, that's 1 minute 40 of a 40-minute track, so, album, I should say. So, yeah, this album doesn't know what it wants to be, but it is bad. Not even the good tracks can really redeem this album. And you can see why Santana fell from grace pretty much starting near this album onwards. So I guess it's interesting the way we've done it, because I think there's only 1 or 2 albums from this that I've only listened to, and now I'm forcing myself to listen to it, and I'm going backwards, and I'm like, so that's kind of where everything fell apart.
Yeah.
You know? It's like looking at a car at the end and slowly being built
Shango
together.
and his part in my downfall.
Yeah. Shango is where the first part fell off. The exhaust pipe has come off everyone, and we're still going. Yeah, Shango to me pretty much is where things were starting to be troubled. That's just my outsider's view looking in. Hindsight's a beautiful thing as well as Wikipedia. So for me, yeah, look, Shango was very, very below average.
Yeah.
It was just...
well, I hated the Thai chili, but I guess from what you'll say, you might be jalapeno.
What gave it away? No, I had it at Carolina Reaper. No, it's definitely a jalapeno for me. Yeah. This was pure... this is an album I am not going to go back to. But actually, one of the 4 tracks I was talking about before, Hold On, was one of the tracks, I think, from that. This is Santana.
Oh, yeah. Of
course, that was the radio hit, I think, one of his big ones from the 80s. So, yeah, sure. Congratulations. So, yeah, jalapeno for me. What did you say? Thai chili for yours?
Yeah.
Thai chili, okay. Yeah.
As I said, I just find it really hard to rate any Santana albums as the lowest.
May as well be a jalapeno in your books. Yeah, look, it's nothing I'm going to rush back to, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed that I spent 40 minutes listening to it.
Yeah.
I'm probably just disappointed I spent 35 minutes listening to it, you know? So we move on to the Frank Zappa... the Santana album ZEPOB, 1981. Of course, it does look like Frank Zappa in a dot matrix colour scheme. Pretty sure it looks exactly like one of his albums as well from that time. I don't know if he's trying to emulate his style here, but yes, ZEPOB with an apostrophe at the end of that. 1981, Carlos Santana. Now, what did you make of this
Tales
album?
of Kilimanjaro on it.
Did I miss that? Shit, I did.
Same position,
that? Yeah.
First track on side 2.
Oh God, he didn't
I
wait.
looked at this and I thought, is there a mistake in the?
Yeah. How did I miss that? Jeez, he did it again.
Yeah. No, it's the second track on side 2 of Havana Moon. So he's taken again. He switched some of his Santana band stuff, and he's intertwined, but. He's taken some of his Santana band stuff and done it as a solo, and I think he's done the opposite as well. So.
Oh my God, that's creativity for you, ripping yourself off. Oh man, I didn't.
Well, you can actually plagiarise yourself. You know,
can you plagiarise your own self?
You can plagiarise yourself. Yeah, I know. From an academic perspective, if you quote yourself previous work without quoting that's your previous work, then you can be done for plagiarism. Because I guess you may be representing it as new material, you know.
Oh yeah, true.
So yes, he's plagiarised.
Jeez, I hope you wrote down the author of the music. Okay, that's shit. I completely missed that. Even when I was playing through it. Wow. Okay, I got to re-listen to that and the other version because I believe one of the other tracks as well was. There's a fair bit of differences, I guess, in there. But look, from what I wrote here, it says. Changes is a really good opener track. It's very upbeat and poppy. Yeah, Cat Stevens version as well. Cover again. I wouldn't say I couldn't even tell you the original version. I don't think I've heard it, but I love the cover. I love this version. I love this song. It's a great opening track to me. This is compared to the last couple of albums that we've been listening to here. Really, it grabbed me. Then it flows into the next track. Papa Ray. I think I mispronounced that, but it flows well onto that track and has a great energy again. And then the third track again, Primavera Invasion, another solid track. It just has his first 3 tracks are just fantastic.
Which seems to be a consistent thing in some of his albums.
Yeah.
The first 3 tracks you listen to, and that's really good, and then it just loses its way.
Yeah, I think he knows that.
It's getting their attention.
Well, that's it. You know,
See, this is back in the days when you listen to it in a booth in a record bar. You'd hear the first 3 tracks, say, I'm buying that. Then you get home and find the other 9 are shit.
Yep, that don't sound that doesn't sound wrong at all.
So there's probably record company executives who know that, and they're putting that first.
Yeah,
you put the first 3, and usually the last track is a strong one. You know.
Yeah, they're just going, okay, so shit, are you sure you want to do this one? Okay, we'll push that one back to track 6 for the mid-album hole. Okay, yeah, no, yeah. For me, I mean, I wrote track 4 was meh. You can skip over that one. But, I mean, Over and Over seems to be a cover, but I'm not sure who Rick Myers is.
Oh, I've heard that name, but I can't place him either.
Yeah, it's almost and great rock and disco crossover. It's almost a great rock and disco crossover, I should say, which is very unusual to hear in a sentence. I don't consider any disco music really to be fantastic. So, interesting, very interesting. Yeah, Winning seems to be cheesy, but
was Russ Ballard again?
That's Russ Ballard again. That makes sense
so
again.
That seems to be his hit writer.
Yeah, so he's teamed up with him again. It's cheesy, but in an endearing way.
That's a song that I've heard quite a bit of, and it must be on one of the essential or best of or whatever that I've got.
Yeah, okay.
I don't recall hearing it on any of the live albums, but could have been. But it is an FM friendly kind of.
Oh, it's definitely this is the one
hit
for the radios.
Yep.
You know, because it's different compared to everything else we listen to. Look, I give that song a pass.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't add it to my playlists, but I'm not going to skip it, I guess, if I heard it either. Yeah, it's not bad, that song. And, yeah, look, it's a really good album for the 80s. I thought this is probably his standout album, actually.
Yep.
You know, probably beating... what did I say before?
Shango or...
no, definitely not Shango.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think to me this is probably his highlight of the 80s.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it was at the beginning. Yeah, it captures that Santana sound, which we know so well, with a bit of a change, but not too much that it alienates the fans. You know, there's enough for a bit of updated times. There's enough to be considered slightly disco. There's enough for it to be considered slightly 80s rock to a degree. But it's not such a drastic change that the other albums brought in that it just is complete crap, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. Yeah, so that's what I wrote there in regards to it. It's a bit of a hidden gem, actually. I wrote that. It's a hidden gem album to me.
Yeah, I thought it was a standard offering. Dated, I agree. It's and some really simple, even poor lyrics on some of the tracks.
Yeah.
Almost school kid kind of stuff. You know, like I'm sure I wrote better songs when I was 16. You know, locked away in your room trying to write songs. You know,
not a band of 15 years on the road almost. I mean,
it's patchy, but with enough highlights, I think, to keep you interested in. Probably a good 1980s party album.
Yeah,
this would be the kind of album you drop on the record player.
Yeah, okay.
When people are arriving first drinks, or maybe even halfway through the party.
Yeah.
And you wanted to lift the,
lift the mood up and stuff like that.
Listen to against the noise of a crowd. And loud, turned up loud, as they were,
Yes, yeah.
My favourite track besides Tales of Kilimanjaro again was Primera Invasion. I like that.
Yeah.
Winning I picked as the
radio.
The radio. On track I Love You Too Much. He plays. It seems to me to play with a Roy Buchanan style. On that,
who?
Roy Buchanan. Roy Buchanan was a famous, or wasn't he was an American
musician?
blues guitarist,
blues
style guitarist. Just trying to think. He was in a band, but he mainly made solo material. Bit patchy at times, but he had some really great stuff. He did covers of some Hendrix stuff, like Hey Joe, although that's not written by Hendrix.
Okay, no, that was a blues
Hendrix
cover anyway, wasn't
it? Yeah. But yeah, Roy Buchanan, who sadly had probably died by about then, maybe not. Roy had a battle with the bottle. Which he lost. And
that's unlikely for any blues musician.
Yeah, well, he had an album out called A Street Called Straight, when he was supposed to have given up drugs and alcohol. But as I read in one review, in Roy Buchanan's case, the Street Called Straight didn't run very long. And sadly, he got picked up one night, drunk and disorderly, in some little American US state town, and put in jail and hung himself.
Whoa,
So,
that's dark.
Yeah,
that's sad.
And, but that, if you listen to that track, it's got just trying to think of the track of Roy Buchanan's that it reminded me of. The Messiah Has Surely Come, or something like that, because Roy had a religious bent to a lot of his stuff, as does Carlos,
Santana,
of course.
yeah.
And I don't know if that. I don't know if that was Roy's original. I don't. He didn't write a lot of material, but.
Do you think they ran in the same circles?
Well, possibly. They probably knew each other in the 70s. Roy Buchanan never got the fame and probably fortune that Carlos Santana and many others did, but he was a damn fine guitarist and a really good. I bought a first album of his. I bought was one called Live in Japan. Nice. It's got Hey Joe on it, and he does elongated long tracks. Roy Buchanan also was not a great vocalist and did sing sometimes, not a strong vocalist, but not as strong, but he could get by. And he also had bands where he had people there who would sing with him, sing for him, sing as well. A bit like Robin Trower, who I don't think has ever tried to sing, but Robin Trower is another very good guitar player, but he's always had other singers in his band.
I'll take your word on that one.
Well, Robin Trower, I think, was with Procol Harum. I think.
Wait, what was his name?
Robin Trower, Trower.
Did he do some solo albums in the 70s?
Yeah, he's done.
Oh, fuck, I did. I listened to it.
There's a live
I listened to his solo album just last week.
Yeah,
I was listening
he's got a new one out, I think, about
I was listening to it just like the other week, and I go, shit, who's this?
Yeah.
I don't know the guy, but
he's got a new solo album out just in the last couple of weeks, and
yeah, right.
One of the album.
He turned like 80 or something recently, I think.
He's fair age, a bit fair age, and he had a live album out in the 70s, which had Daydream was on it, and a few other tracks. Writes his own material. He's very good.
Yeah, he's a
very
good guitarist.
But that's what I think. That track to me has that Roy Buchanan style. This album was produced by Bill Graham too. I noted.
I think it was his last one as well. I wrote here it's possibly his last produced album with Bill Graham, then that shows. Like I guess Bill Graham and Santana worked very well together. I feel like Bill Graham obviously had his best interests at heart, and I think helped him with a bit of decisions and focus and focus and direction. That's what I'm thinking of in regards to where the band should go in the future. And like I said, it's not 3 steps forward, type of thing. But it's enough to be a little bit forward.
Yep.
And maybe the record execs felt it wasn't enough of a push for the time of the music, and of course we got what we got after. But
he does a J.J. Cale cover, Sensitive Kind.
Yeah, okay.
And I noted on one of his later albums that he played 1 or 2 tracks in a J.J. Cale style, so I don't know whether J.J. might have dropped into the studio to show him a few licks.
Might have, yeah. That'd be interesting. I did have to say that it's probably got the worst 80s album ever, the worst 80s era album cover.
Well, when you consider some of Santana's album covers, and we said this in the first round, that they're pieces of art themselves. Yeah, this is not much. This is just a
it's just a red and black dot matrix looking thing. I think it's actually, if you were to zoom into it, I think it's that old school kind of fax. It's like squares of ink.
Yeah.
I believe if I was to zoom in, I believe it's actually like that. So
a lot of his albums, if it doesn't feature that really great artwork, which I said would be something you'd hang on your wall, it's either just a picture of Carlos, like Freedom, for example. And, and you never get, even on band albums, I don't recall, unlike many other bands, where you get a photo of the whole band on the front.
I don't think he's had the whole band. No. Not even on the back, maybe?
I can't recall. I mean, he must have.
Surely he would have done it for the first ones, maybe.
No, well, I know the first Santana album with Evil Ways, it's just got that lion's head type of thing.
Yeah,
and,
they're all... no, there is.
Back of that may feature some pictures of other band members.
There is one coming up, actually.
Okay.
There is one.
Yeah.
You'll see it. Yeah. Anyway, I gave it a Carolina Reaper. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I know like you said, lyrically not the strongest, but look, Santana's not known for a strong lyricist, so I really could look past that and consider this one of the better albums from this outing. And Carolina Reaper for me.
I gave it a Ghost Pepper, but I could go with the Carolina Reaper.
You go with the Carolina Reaper?
Yep.
Yeah, I could re-listen to that album.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I could definitely re-listen to that one. So. Alright, so the next one we got coming up, the next album, another solo album, of course, The Swing of Delight, 1980, I've got written here as the release of this album. This one I can instantly tell you will love this album. I was listening to it I never heard any of his solo albums. As I said, I didn't listen to a lot of these albums before playing it through, but when I first started playing this, I'm like, yep, Wazza's definitely going to love this. It's a lot of freeform jazz and a lot of freeform type of, jam tracks, I guess, as well. Very jazz orientated. Love it. High energy. I actually really enjoy this.
Yeah, this one, as I said, I purchased this on cassette when it came out. So you listen to it in the car. Because I often found Santana music, particularly the albums that kind of blended together. And even with those you'd purchase on vinyl, you'd record onto cassette, so you could listen to it in the car. But they played well for a road trip.
Yeah.
You get out of Sydney,
disagree.
You put the music on, and just you got this constant beat. It's not focusing on just individual tracks. It's just like one blend of really good boppy. Sometimes bluesy, sometimes jazzy. And I listened to it a couple of times when I first bought it. Cassette sounds,
it's a terrible sound.
It's a terrible sound, yeah. I had a pretty good cassette player, but this particular tape that I bought for this one, which was a proper store tape, it wasn't a knockoff I got from Thailand or a mate recorded it for me, just had a very bad sound on it. It just didn't play well. I don't know whether it was the quality of the tape or whatever. It doesn't matter whether I was in the car or at home. So I listened to it a number of times, but just didn't really get into it as much. And but I liked this then. I liked it then. There were parts of it that I liked, and I like it even more now after listening to it 20 plus years later, 30 or 1980. Geez, 40 years later.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Damn.
And although it's probably 20 years since I last listened to it. So maybe I listened to a cassette in 1999 or 2000. I don't know.
It's one of those secret Santana albums you forgot about, and then you come back to it and you went,
find it, when you're going through to throw out your cassette. I think, I'll listen to that one more time.
Yeah. But no, I guess this was a hidden gem for you then.
Yeah. It's very much a swing style Latin jazz feel.
I
prefer the non-vocal side of Santana, and I felt this was so much better than the previous Santana band album.
It definitely falls in with the previous works that he's done.
And I prefer this to his other, like Oneness and probably Havana Moon as well. Yeah.
Look, for me, I wrote here, it's a really overlooked solo album.
Yeah.
I guess I saw that was because of the count in regards to Spotify. A lot of these albums, a lot of the ones we've just been discussing, have low counts. And this album in particular has a very low count. And I feel that's unjust compared to the other ones. Fuck the other ones, play this one. If you're a Santana fan, play this one. I think you'll be thoroughly attracted.
Wayne Shorter.
And
when you check on the musicians playing on this album, it's Tony Williams, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, and Ron Carter.
Was Herbie Hancock on this album?
So, I'm not sure if they're on every track, but so that's the four of the members of Miles Davis. When you count Miles Davis, his second great quintet, which was probably considered one of the best jazz bands ever.
Interesting. Didn't know that. I think this is also the last.
I didn't know that either myself, because on the cassette I don't think it gave any details of the musicians, but I looked it up a few weeks back when I first listened to this.
I can imagine that'd be a cassette that just came blank almost.
Yeah, I don't think there's much information.
Well, you don't get much in the book.
There wasn't much space.
There was
basically it was a shrunk version of the record cover.
Yeah. Even when I've only ever had one cassette. was like from a school dance or something. You know, the winner of like this dance got a cassette. In which case it was a Green Day record. I think it was Warning or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is probably not the record you want to give, you know, a 12-year-old. But anyway, they gave a cassette of this one, and I played it on the cassette player that we had, chewed it up. I felt so excited. Here's his tape. I got the first tape I've ever had in my life, and the cassette player chewed it up. But yeah, from what I remember, even looking at the book, I'm pretty sure it's just a thin piece of paper in for the artwork, and that was it.
Yeah,
it doesn't have any like.
I mean, at least with CDs, they often came with booklets.
Correct. Yeah, you could have a bit of reading material when you're
you're
listening.
Yeah, you could have everything. Sometimes printed at about 0.6 font.
Yeah, yeah. Put the glasses on.
Which
you read
doesn't
it real
suit.
good. I think there was some interesting. Although there's a lot of stuff when it comes. That's the thing that is missing with physical media. Is when you got CDs, there would be some stuff in there like notes from the artist, photos from the artist. For example, Pearl Jam had that.
I do miss that.
Yeah, and they would write interesting things in there. Metallica had some stuff. Obviously, there'd be pictures of, you know, their word sheets written up and all that. Yeah, who cares? But then there would be other
often
ones.
the lyrics.
Yeah, even the lyrics. Okay, fantastic. I can read the lyrics. But the other thing, they had inside jokes in some of them, or I know Pearl Jam had Eddie Vedder's photography in another one. So, you know, it's just this stuff that is kind of overlooked. Online, you're barely even looking at the album cover.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of feel that's something that I reminisce, and I miss that part of
I miss the
physical
atoms.
media. Yeah, I miss physically holding it, smelling it, you know, that new CD smell yummy.
I used to like sitting down, listening to records and looking at the record cover, and, you know, they'd give you the personnel quite often. As I said, sometimes lyrics, certainly the writer, you know, the writers of the tracks, and so you'd have a look at the mix and see who's writing in the band, and where they got a guest appearance or something, and who's playing what, you know, because sometimes you get a particularly larger band and they might switch instruments. The person who's played bass might also play piano on a couple of tracks, and
exactly,
and so on. So yeah, you do miss out on that information and that flow. And I mean, you're right. Sometimes they put little jokes, little in jokes. I mean, even on, you know, things like Abbey Road, the Beatles, you know, they had supposedly Paul McCartney's funeral on the back cover, then crossing the road, you know. George dressed up as a grave digger, John's dressed up as the minister in white. Paul's got bare feet, which is supposed to denote a corpse. The Volkswagen in the background had 24 if on the number plate.
24 if,
which means he would have been 24 if he'd been alive.
Oh, God.
Or 28 if, I'm not sure. It could be 28.
Well, he died at 34, so it would have been 24.
No, Paul McCartney is supposed to be. Yeah,
Paul McCartney. Right. Yeah.
So in 1969 or 70, when that was done, he probably 28. Yeah, it would be 28.
Yeah, it wouldn't be 24, definitely not.
Yeah, because John Lennon was 40 when he was
we'll discuss that on the other episode as well in regards to Live Listen and Race, where we discussed the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Jethro Tull, where I think they said they met in 1959, so something like that. Yeah. So mathematically, they can't be 24 at 1969. Well, they could, but not really.
I remember one Little Feat album cover, you know, record cover, and it had the tracks on the back with all the with the words, and it had one of them, about the fifth or sixth, was scratched out, like covered out, and said maybe next time. And they did. They put it on another album. I don't know it was the next one, but I thought, obviously a joke. I mean, if you were going to design the cover, you wouldn't put all that on and say, oh, hang on, we're not going to put that track on.
Yeah.
Oh, we've just printed 1 million or 500,000 covers.
Yeah. I always thought to myself, you know what, if I was doing an album cover, I'd want to get like the guy from the Mad Artist who does the fold-ins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's his name? Al Jaffe or whatever. Imagine that, having your album cover do a fold-in to do the actual album cover. Yeah, but that'd
be the last one and only time, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
your album cover would be...
Oh, but think about it. That'd be next level. I don't think anyone's done something like that for album cover.
There were some really creative album covers, you know. I mean, Led Zeppelin 3 had the thing on a spin, you know, like you had these holes in the cover and you could spin this thing around, different symbols would come up, and
Zofo and all the rest. Yep.
Small faces, ooh la la. You'd push down on the top of it, and there was a man on the front, and his eyes would change, and his tongue poke out or something.
Oh, okay.
Rolling Stones famously with sticky fingers, when you opened up the cover, popped a tongue, which looked very phallic.
There was also, I think, Tool with 10,000 Days, and they had album artwork but with glasses. And I think when you viewed it through the glasses, you would see something in the pattern of the album artwork. They were very...
Well, because Sticky Fingers was the one originally with the zipper. And you undid the
Yeah.
zipper on the front, and out popped the tongue.
Okay.
And they decided that was a bit too risque. So when they... And also, that damaged the record in transit. And
because it shrunk, didn't it?
well, no, it was a proper zipper.
Right.
So if you stacked your albums top... Yeah, which you shouldn't do anyway.
Yeah,
But if you stacked it that way, and they were often stacked that way for transport...
Yeah.
It
They
would
would
damage the album, bend the album. And,
Okay, didn't
so
know that.
And also it got banned, of course, in the US and other places where they're a bit more,
Conservative.
sensitive about those kind of things.
What is it? What was the quote I heard from them? Conservative in public, but freak in private.
Well, the Sticky Fingers album was then later released, minus the zipper, and they're probably rare covers now. They're probably worth money if you can get hold of them. But when it just had a pull apart part, and it just showed a pair of like a man's underpants, and it had an apology from Andy Warhol et al. Or something like that. I think it might have been Andy Warhol who designed
Jeez,
that.
yeah, okay.
So
Andy
it just
Warhol.
had that printed on the underpants.
Wow. Yeah, because there was a lot of 70s albums that were recalled and had different album covers. Beggar's Banquet was another one.
Yeah, that's right.
For
Yeah, two
whatever
completely
reason. That was
different.
just a cake on the fucking cover. Why would they recall it? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah. God Save the Queen was another one with Sex Pistols again. So, I mean, look, there's a whole bunch of artists when it comes to that, and they got some physical media. But anyway, tangent aside, on the whole, a great effort, this album.
Yeah.
I love this. This album was really probably the biggest surprise out of this lot. I'll probably not going to rush back to hear it, but I will definitely go back to listen to it at some stage. You know, if you wanted to hear Carlos do jazz, this is it.
Yeah.
You know,
Sheer Calm the Tiger, the Wayne Shorter track, was a standout for me.
I think this is his last solo album in his Sanskrit title of
Devadip.
Yep, Devadip Carlos Santana. So, yeah, I gave this one a Carolina Reaper. I thought it was worthy of it.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, Carolina Reaper.
Yeah, good one. Good album.
Yep.
Definitely the first two tracks for me, I think, were the best. But, yeah, no, it was a very good album. So the following album we have is 1979's album Marathon.
What about Oneness? We've done.
Have I mixed up the... Nope, that's number 22.
Okay.
Yeah, page 22, I should say. I think in regards to how they were released, I think Oneness did come before. But anyway.
Yeah.
Marathon. So, yeah, 1979's Marathon, 11 tracks at 40 minutes and 29 seconds. I think it's a missed opportunity where they could have used an outro at 1 minute 31 to make it a true marathon of 42 minutes long in total. Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So, that is what I was disappointed about the most. But no, in regards to this album, it's interesting hearing these albums in reverse order again because, you know, you're slowly getting from that massive style from the origins, like the first album, to here, you know, in regards to Marathon, which is a lot more disco-y, obviously, due to the times. So Santana's trying to get in with the current sound, and I think Marathon was one of those albums that just tried to appease that.
It was 1980s pop music.
Definitely. And, I mean, look, considering the times, it's no surprise, you know. Aquamarine is a nice piece, pretty chilled, I wrote here. Thought it was one of the favourite.
Alan Pasca again.
Yep, Alan Pasca. I thought it was one of the better tracks on this album. But, you know that I love is a rather generic late 70s rock sound, nothing special. It's probably the closest to disco sounding album that Santana has released, I believe. So, you know, what were your thoughts in regards to this album?
1980s pop music, designed for FM play. I remember listening to this album when it first came out and was disappointed. Didn't bother buying it. Sounds like 100 albums of that era. Sounds like, I think I I might have made this comment in relation to one of Santana's other albums earlier, maybe. I'm not sure, but it just sounds a bit like Santana trying to be Toto. Toto, that band,
Toto.
The band that was made up of studio musicians.
Yeah, right.
And had a song. I think was "Why of the Tiger." Was that one of theirs?
Toto. No. Hold the Line. Africa.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Africa, yeah.
There ain't no Hold the Line here, is there? There's no cover.
It just sounds like 100 albums of that time. Short poppy tracks, playing to an audience.
If this didn't have the Santana name to it, you'd probably mistake it for several other artists at the time.
Look, the comment I made, good guitar, naturally.
Yep.
Final track, Hard Times, I thought was a standout from a fairly vanilla flavoured set.
Yeah. It's definitely nothing to write home about.
Aquamarine was good too, but
yeah, there was nothing special, this album.
Yeah.
The thing is, on paper it seems like a good pairing, disco and Latin rock. But it seems like that should work. It should anyway. But for some reason, this just sounds very average, and it's like no effort went into this.
Yeah.
They just went through the motions to put out an album.
Okay, but no responsibility.
Yeah, we're contractually obligated to write an album, and we're going to. So, unfortunately, Marathon is the byproduct of that. So, yeah very...
Sorry to see them finish off the 70s, which they started so strongly.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and went downhill.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He found his mojo again.
Yeah, look, it definitely came back later on. It would just take quite a few more albums to get to that point. But for me, that was, I'd say, a Thai Chili. Yeah. It's not a strong album. It's definitely not one that I'll go back to anytime soon, and not a standout album.
Yeah, I agree with the Thai Chili.
Yeah, definitely. Alright, we go into another solo album, Oneness, Silver Dreams, Golden Reality, 1979. This is the second of 3 solo albums written under his Sanskrit name, David Carlos, of course.
Yeah, well, by the early 80s, I think he'd split from Chimnoy, because actually I noticed on one of his later albums, Chimnoy wrote the track.
Yes.
And I assume that's probably his, muse at the time, or whatever you call it. But I did read somewhere that he and his wife fell out with that guy, and
I thought it was his wife's uncle or something like that.
Yeah,
it was
can't
some
remember
kind
the
of
relationship.
connection.
I know that they were introduced, and it might have even been John McLaughlin, the guitarist.
Rightio.
The jazz guitarist.
Okay.
Very good guitarist, and still producing, and still bringing out albums. Although I think he talked about retirement not that long ago. Very fast guitarist, John McLaughlin.
Okay.
He's more like the jazz version of Jeff Beck.
Or Joe Satriani.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that he still keeps going.
But I think John McLaughlin may have introduced... John McLaughlin worked with Miles Davis and Wayne Shorter. He was on Bitches Brew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's still around, is he?
Yeah.
Shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about his Sanskrit era. From what I understand, it was a spiritual thing, and I don't really care to go any further into looking into that. He had, from what I understand, he just had a spiritual awakening, I guess, and there's a few solo albums that came of it. For me, this is the weakest solo album of his so far that I'm going. I haven't looked at his first one yet, so I don't know about that one. But this is weak. It's another jazz influenced album, of course. Very similar to the Swing of Delight, with partial live tracks as well here. I think what was it, Light versus Darkness, or the second track I think it was a live track. But for me, it's not bad. It's just that it's very odd. I felt Swing of Delight was a bit more focused than this one.
Yeah, I turned off some of these albums when they got to be too much like, a religious rock. Same as, I listened to Dylan's Christian albums, the two or three.
Your game.
I didn't buy them. I listened to them. I
Good.
had a flatmate that bought the first one. I can't even remember the name. Slow Train Coming, I think.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It had some good tracks on. I mean, Dylan, Bad Dylan is still really good. I just, when they start getting too preachy or too into it, I mean, there's been some great music written about religion. I mean, John Coltrane's Love Supreme.
Yeah,
is a whole, and that's one of the best jazz albums of all times. I love that album.
Of course.
But it's not vocal either. It's an instrumental album, jazz album. You could have called it, popcorn at the movies.
Yeah, but there's no vocal sign to
well,
it.
It does have actually. There is a track. I'm not sure if Coltrane added it or it was added later, but they do that. They do a little vocal.
Okay.
In it, again, John McLaughlin and Wayne Shorter and Carlos Santana live at the Montreux Jazz Festival did the Love Supreme, and sang it. And that's when Carlos Santana stepped up to the microphone as well and started chanting that. I mean, but then again, most people could do that and get away with saying that's my vocals. I mean, I could do that. And I can't sing for Save My Life.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, look, this is a very smooth, nice track-to-track blend. It's a clear jazz orientation, as you said. But it's a bit too much like Muzak.
Yeah.
I think for some,
Yeah.
I found Life is Just a Passing Parade to be probably one of the better tracks, but it's pure Santana. Again, band, man, solo.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I couldn't really say anything truly stuck out. It kind of all blended into a kind of psychedelic tunes with a few jams in some of them. I felt it was definitely a lot more in the lines of jazz, freeform jazz, I should probably say. Because most of these tracks are also, 40 seconds long.
Yes.
It's like, that is one of my pet peeves. I have a real hate about, tracks that are probably split into 5 things where it's one track. I really hate that. Yeah. But anyway, disregarding that, still, it was a bit too far-fetched for my liking. I don't mind jam tracks. I don't mind a bit of jazz. Mix it in with a bit too much psychedelics and stuff. It just strays a bit from the path to me. Too abstract.
It's a good album for a Sunday afternoon nap.
Yes. Yep, I'll take that.
Fall asleep by track 3, wake up when it stops.
Yep, that's fair. Yeah, these are the sounds of rain. No, I got oneness. Don't worry about it.
Sorry again, Carlos.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Yeah, if you're listening, I know you are. You wrote to me the other week, but he said, please ease up and not,
Yeah, don't be so hypercritical.
Yeah, exactly. But no, look, it's still decent. I'm glad I heard it.
Yeah.
That's what
it's not an unpleasant album.
No, it's not unpleasant. I'm not disappointed with listening to it. I'm just not probably going to rush back to it.
Yeah, Swing of Delight was definitely the...
Yeah, that would be my... Yeah, out of the solo albums I've heard so far, that's the one I'm going back to. Ghost Pepper for me.
I think I gave it a Thai chili, but yeah, Ghost Pepper. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, perfect. So, we come up to the last one of this episode. We have the album cover of Inner Secrets, 1978, with part of the band anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
there are.
There we go. We tied it back in. So this is, I think, as you were saying, there's a few photos, of course, of Santana throughout the years on different albums, but I believe this is probably the only one with part of the band.
Yeah, all applauding or pointing at Carlos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Santana. Oh, thank you, Santana. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for allowing us to be on this album. Thanks for writing every track on
house.
Yeah. So from what I understand, I did a bit of research in regards to this album, but apparently this is a very dividing album in the Santana community. As he shifted in style away from that Latin jazz and fusion rock to this. So, what are your thoughts in regards to it?
Yeah, this is the album that I got. I mean, I didn't. This is the album that I listened to when it first came out, and it's the album that probably made me disregard some of his later material in the next decade or so, because I thought that he'd lost that Latin jazz fusion blues style. I mean, he's got a wonderful guitar sound, and he's got this like a lot of great guitarists, I suppose, quite a unique sound himself. But on this, it was just
it's lost.
Pop, yeah. And look, he's got Buddy Holly's "Well Alright." That was a big hit for him.
Yeah.
And that was covered by Blind Faith
in
in 1969 on their one and only studio album.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So Steve Winwood singing that there, and they did a good version of "Well Alright." It appeared on one or two other albums. I think a couple of live tracks. I probably saw them live around about then, and they were doing "Well Alright" on that particular tour. I mean, I wouldn't have heard that song if it hadn't been on the Blind Faith album, because I never heard the Buddy Holly version until after I'd heard Blind Faith.
Okay.
But this is the album I wrote where it feels like Santana meets Toto.
Yes. I can see that with this album in particular.
Dealer, good acoustic guitar, Spanish style.
Yeah, that was
Open
right.
Invitation is that's featured on a few I think live albums and compilations and so on.
Yeah, I was going to say
upbeat,
that.
FM friendly track. That was one you did hear on the radio.
Yeah, definitely.
Life is a Life is a lady and slash holiday.
Yeah.
That was excellent. Particularly with the holiday part.
Yeah.
Good beat, jazzy instrumentals. I think that he was probably under pressure here to produce another, to go more mainstream.
Yeah, probably to try and reproduce that sound that he was before, but at the same time becoming more commercial.
Yeah.
Look, this is definitely one of his worst albums, in my opinion. Where it says that people are divided, I sit on the fence I don't sit on the fence, I sit on the side that says this is a terrible album. I guess I'll go in a little bit of a rant here, because I wrote some notes, considering this is the end of episode 2, as to what I thought about this album and some of the issues that would be from the that would stem from the future. I did say, of course, in Shango, that it felt like that was where it all started. You could probably go all the way back to Inner Secrets, to be honest. I think in music, of course, you need to evolve to survive. You have to. If you're not evolving in music, you're going to be stale, you're going to stay the same, and you're not really going to do anything. I mean, hell, even the Ramones, to a degree, evolved over time. So Santana had to evolve with his times. He can't always stay in that Latin rock, jamish kind of side. Santana knew this, and he wanted to try things. He wanted to change with the times, and he wanted to try things like disco and that kind of revolution. The issue I feel, once again looking outsider looking in scenario, but the problem I felt that he had was, after 10 years of being in this band, Santana had no original members. By this stage, the band was all new members from the Woodstock era of the lineup, except for Carlos. So while his previous band members were work colleagues and people in his circles that he probably developed bonds from ages ago, these were all mostly, I guess, people from outside, from the outside. You probably didn't know them too well. And I guess if you know someone and you've worked with them and you know them very well, you're going to listen to what they have to say. You're going to take it on board, criticism or whatever. Obviously that is why the original albums were so they worked so well, I should say. But I feel like whatever these musicians were that came in from Inner Secrets onwards probably didn't push him too much, because obviously Carlos Santana is Santana. And the album gets lazy, it lacks any focus, it is generic disco rock and yacht rock and all those bad genres that people associate with that. It is this album. Even the album cover lacks imagination. So I feel this was a cash grab maybe by the record execs, but at the same time,
this was one of his weakest albums, and this is the one that as I said, probably turned me off listening to Santana for quite a few years. So when
Mm.
future albums came out, I'd listen to a bit of it if I could, but I wouldn't race out and spend my hard-earned on it.
No, and I could only imagine why you wouldn't. You know,
Yeah.
when you listen to this album, it's not there.
I mean, I've gone back and, with the online, with Spotify, Apple Music and so on, you can go back and listen to this stuff now, and I've done that with quite a few Santana albums, listen to ones that I thought I never really listened to that much, but I didn't mind what I'd heard. Inner Secrets was one I don't think I ever went back and listened to until I listened to again, until I was doing this, because I just thought, okay, I know the track well all right, and one or two others, but Open Invitation,
But that's really about it. There was just nothing else going for it on this album.
Yeah, no,
There's barely anything going for it.
He was being pushed into a formula. They were. I don't know whether I haven't read about how he met the musicians and how they replaced and so on. I knew how he lost most of the other ones, often through drug and just personality clashes and things like that. But when I say lost, they didn't die. They just left the band because he didn't want drug users in his band. He was trying to keep fairly clean at the time. But this just seems like a bunch of largely white studio musicians coming in and just playing along, and Carlos would come in and overlay some guitar.
Definitely is. It's a play it safe record. It just doesn't push the boundaries.
The choice of material, One Chain, I think it's an old song, obviously, even then.
It's very safe covers even. I mean, it's nothing like the stuff that we'll cover in part 3, the reasons that really made him. But it's by the books. It's just cookie cutter crap. Like you said, it sounds like Toto. This is Santana holding the line, if you will, in regards to what he will make. So it was unfortunate. I don't like this album. I definitely would rate it a jalapeno. I don't think there's really any redeeming tracks, to be honest, on this album.
I gave it a Thai chili, but I could go with jalapeno as well. I mean, a few of the tracks were okay. But
But are they covers or are they originals?
Well, I don't think much of it's original anyway, is it?
Probably half the album is covers.
I mean, there's Life is a Holiday, Life is a Lady and Holidays, Santana. Lambert,
Look, I mean, I guess even his earlier stuff was pretty much half originals and half covers. Anyway.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, some of the best bands around, often did largely cover albums. The Allman Brothers band, which I've mentioned before, and I really love. They had some great material of their own, but they also did some fantastic versions of other people's material, including taking part of Donovan's song, There Is a Mountain, and turning it into a 35-minute mountain jam.
Okay.
Donovan wrote this little folk song. Donovan, the English, Scottish born folk guitarist from the 1960s.
Probably a 3-minute track, I'm guessing.
There is a mountain, then there is, and the Allman Brothers took that beat and turned it into a 35-minute jam, on live at the Fillmore, and then they did it forever and ever until their final show, I think.
Wow.
And it's just a great track, but that wasn't, and they credited it, of course. I mean, it's the Allman Brothers because they wrote, the other part of it, but they also Leach, which was Donovan Leach, his surname Leitch.
Ironic.
Yeah.
No, okay.
That makes sense. They're the Allman Brothers again, Statesboro Blues. That was an old blues track, but they made it their own kind of thing, and many bands. I mean, Eric Clapton's and Cream's Crossroads.
Yes, Eric Clapton, just Eric Clapton.
Yeah,
in general.
Robert Johnson.
Pretty much a man, just trying to recapture the sound of Robert Johnson in general. Led Zeppelin again.
Yeah, well, they got caught, didn't they, with their hands in the cookie jar a few times?
I think
trying to claim Whole Lot of Love for themselves, and
Rolling Stones as well.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's unfair to say that. Oh yeah, you've clearly ripped it off. Every artist rips off every other artist that's come before them.
And people like Joe Cocker rarely did his own. He rarely wrote his own material, but he had such a unique voice. I mean, he did a much better version of some Beatles songs than the Beatles did.
I'll side with Joe Cocker on that regards. If you've watched the live listen to Race episode as 5A, you'll see exactly my thoughts in the Beatles. Yeah, but no, I think it's unfair when people do say, oh, you know, several rock artists and shit like that, they sounded like the people before them. Yeah, of course they did.
Yeah,
that's who influenced them.
Yeah, they build.
You know, of course the Rolling Stones were influenced by the 40s blues scene.
But the Rolling Stones have influenced 100 other bands, at least. You know.
And 40s blues scene was influenced by 20s bop. What do you want to say?
That's right.
Mozart influenced probably rock. I mean, shit, if you go far enough back, everyone's influenced
music
by
just
something.
Builds on itself, and you know,
exactly.
And
everyone does covers.
Picking up a guitar these days is going to go back at some stage probably and listen to the likes of, you know, the heroes from my age, you know, Eric Clapton and people like that, Roy Buchanan, Robin Trower, whoever they're into, and depends whether they're into blues, rock, or whatever.
Well, I think even when you're starting off as a musician, the first thing you're going to do is not play your own song. You're going to learn to play the song you like.
That's right.
So, you know, of course you're always going to be doing some cover.
Yeah, a lot of bands, their first album contains a lot of covers, and then they go into, like, Creedence Clearwater, they did that. You know, John Fogerty went on to write just about every track they ever did after that. But their first album had a Susie Q and a couple of other standard kind of hit. I Put a Spell on You was on it.
Yeah, that's right. But that's a fine way to show off your skills. Is like, you know, this song, we're paying homage to the artist that has influenced, and you will know what we will change it to.
That's the stuff we've been playing in little clubs and bars for the last year or two or three. Yeah. And some record executive heard you and said, come in and record some material, you know?
Yeah.
Can we do some of our own? Oh, yeah, maybe.
No, we only want that cover, that's it, you know? It's a little bit different now, I guess. Everyone's either got ghost writers in regards to what songs they have.
Well, there's songwriting factories. Well, there always were songwriting factories, weren't they?
They always. Yeah, well, John, I suppose, probably one of the most famous ghost writers with, was it Tony? What's it, the name of that guy who used to write for him?
Oh, yeah.
Tony.
His mate.
B, I think it began with. Anyway, the ghost writer that he had with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, just in regards to that, you know, look, music is an ever-changing world, and copying and pasting.
Turpin, Bernie
Tony
Taupin? Bernie Taupin or something?
Bernie Taupin, that's it. Bernie. Yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
But yeah, look, I mean, Santana built his fame on covers, mostly, and obviously executing them in such a way that it was almost unrecognizable from the original. And that is why his biggest, most famous track, Black Magic Woman, is so synonymous to his own sound rather than the original artist.
Which he's performed, I read, with Peter Green.
Oh, did he have the chance?
Wow,
okay.
Many years ago.
That'd be interesting.
Well, I mean, that would have made Peter Green rich at that time.
Yeah, well, Peter Green wasn't exactly rich to begin with, when he wasn't ripping off his own band members.
Peter Green didn't want to be famous and rich. He probably gave the money away.
No, he didn't.
Didn't he, Peter Green?
Peter Green took control of all the band members' money. And they sued him and kicked him out, I think it was. Yeah, because like it was way back in the 60s era or some shit. He's like, oh, give me all your money and I'll look after
Peter
it.
Green was with John Mayall before he formed Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know, like I didn't mind a bit about Peter Green's stuff.
Peter Green's Splinter Group, there's a double live album. I'm not sure if it's live at Ronnie Scott's or something like that, but it's a double live album. And he does Albatross, you know, which was a Fleetwood Mac instrumental.
Okay.
And it's a really smooth, lovely track. And he does Black Magic Woman, I think, on that album, and a whole lot of other material.
I guess he would have to, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the two big songs he was associated with, I suppose. So, I mean, he did do solo stuff. He had issues himself and was off the air for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, but I'd heard that he was one who he eschewed money. Like, he thought, I don't want to be famous, I don't want to make a lot of money, I'm going to walk away from this.
I'm pretty sure he in the early days anyway, before he got kicked out of the band, I'm pretty sure he was holding the money for all of them.
Yeah, okay.
And that was like one of the reasons they...
Well, the royalties from Santana would have helped him.
Yep, definitely.
Those days when royalties counted.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's the only reason I went back and looked at early Fleetwood Mac was after his death, of course, as people do.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I don't really know any Fleetwood Mac before. Before Stevie Nicks, and they had like 6 albums before she joined. They had a lot of albums.
Yeah, they had a big hit with a song called "Oh Well" Parts 1 and 2 or something, or Part 1,
something like that.
But the only time I've seen Fleetwood Mac was in their pretty much current lineup, although Buckingham's left. Or it was probably in their more famous lineup and more successful. But they did "Oh Well," which I was really pleased to hear. I thought, oh great, they're going to do this song, because I remember that track and I liked it. That was. But I thought, they won't do any of the previous. They won't do Albatross.
Yeah, nah. Well, it's surprising when you see bands like that do that earlier stuff that you wouldn't You wouldn't expect.
Well, Lindsey Buckingham singing, "Oh Well,"
Yeah. Well, what was the other one as well? I mean, talk about bands that one band member brings about an entire change to the sound. So Stevie Nicks being one of them, of course, with Fleetwood Mac. The other one I'm thinking of, of course, is Red Hot Chili Peppers. The original guitarist Hilo Slovak dies. They were a very punk funk kind of group, but then they get in their other guitarist John Frusciante and they change it up. Their first Mother's Milk was a bit different, but they brought in their newest sound, of course, after that. But when I was at their live show, the last one they came out for a couple of years ago now, they played Catholic Schoolgirls Rule.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like from their second album.
Yeah.
It is this unknown track. It's like a 1 minute 30 track, and it's literally about sex with Catholic chick girls. But I remember I was just like listening, and I'm like, oh my god, Catholic Schoolgirl! And I remember
everyone else in the audience going, what's he on about?
Yeah, and then I remember Dawes turned into me after the show, and he goes, I bet you were the only one who knew that song. So yeah, look, it's surprising when you see bands do songs that, like I said, wouldn't be known to be doing in their live performances.
Yeah, rehashes of their own material.
Yeah, and I guess that comes back to Santana. He'll always do covers, and it's kind of a surprise to see what he will cover next, I guess. It's, what are you going to do? You're an interesting musician. What are you going to cover?
Yeah, look, he had a unique, that Latin jazz blues and some rock infusion, and I think he kicked off a whole lot of other,
he created a movement, pretty much.
Yeah. Los Lobos, I think, has some. They're much harder rock. They're a good band.
Yeah, they're more focused on the rock scene, the rockabilly sound.
And even bands like the Black Keys, you can see a little bit of that kind of. They're not Latin jazz or anything like that. But I can just see some of, I don't know, that kind of influence, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of sounds in regards to what his influence, I should say. Maybe not so much his 80s material.
Yeah, that's right. I think he was trying to be.
He was trying to
be someone
up.
he wasn't.
Yeah, like in the 70s, he was a trailblazer. But by the time he was in the 80s, he was trying to catch up, as was a lot of 70s musicians, as we said at the beginning of this episode. When I look back at this, there's a lot of albums I did not think about listening to. I always thought when it came to 70s artists and their 80s decade, it was always terrible.
Yeah.
It just is the lull of their careers for a reason, and for most of it, yes, it was a lull in
someone
Santana's.
Probably became too famous, too rich, too early.
Yeah. And this review, I'm glad I listened to these albums. I wouldn't say there was one album I was so disappointed to, I hated to the degree I wish I didn't listen to it. Not one. Not one. But, there's obviously albums that I am not going to go and replay. Shango was one of them, for example. But then there's albums that I was so thoroughly impressed that I wouldn't have even thought about playing.
I really enjoyed his solo material this time around. And, you look at, as I said earlier, at least he's bringing out new material and all that, even though some of it may not be as up to standard or as good as. He could have probably made himself extremely wealthy. I don't know how wealthy he is, but wealthier.
Well, he's wealthy.
By just touring the first 3 albums for the rest of his career.
Yeah, definitely.
And just having a band now and going out and playing, a selection of those tracks with a couple of extras thrown in, a couple of cover tracks or something,
Yeah, definitely.
But he didn't. He kept on.
He kept pushing on, which is always look. I appreciate the fact that he did. Whether or not it was the best of things to do, but I can appreciate what he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, there's definitely a couple of albums there that I'm glad that I did have a look at in regards to. I would probably listen to again. The Swing one, for example, was an album that I thought was very solid, as well as ZEPOB, which is an album that I remember looking at going, that looks like shit.
Yeah.
I am not going to listen to that, and I'm glad I did. I am very glad I did. So, yeah, just says here his value is $120 million.
Oh, okay, that's probably US as well.
Yeah. I just had to Google that because I was just curious as to the value. I thought
how accurate some of those things are.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
probably doesn't take into account his assets. His thousands of guitars that he owns.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, but I think that'll bring about the end of episode 2 there.
All right.
For recording. So, thank you for joining
That's
us
all
on
right.
this Santana-ish episode.
Look forward to our final
and conclusion to part 3. That's gonna be a hard one.
Yeah.
Can't wait. So, of course, probably about 6 weeks from now, I'd say, maybe 8, I'll bring out part 3, and that will be the conclusion of Santana's rankings of the albums as we close out the last ones. I think it's from Moonflower to the very first album of Santana.
Mm-hmm.
So, join us in 8 weeks' time when we release that episode. And as always, everyone, you have a great day, and make sure to stay spicy out there. See you later. Thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please consider liking it and sharing it with your friends. And also don't forget to subscribe to our Chilli Con Carnage Crew to stay updated on our newest videos. We're also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Live Listener Race. Please join us on those media platforms for all kinds of updates and discussions regarding music. And as always, stay spicy.